everyone, and welcome to this week's Tweet Talk. This is where we talk about what some of the topics have been trending and share our opinions and perspectives. My name is Susan Williams, and I'm the founder of Booming Encore, and I'm delighted to be joined again by Mike Drak. Mike is the author of Victory Lap Retirement. Hi, Mike. How are you?
Not bad, Susan.
Well, Mike, let's start off with an interesting topic. We actually had just written a post a while back on competence or age and which one should be the item that we actually validate whether someone should continue doing something or not. Did you have a chance to read it?
I did, and I was thinking about it, and I guess at some point they're going to take my driver's license away from me after a little bit of time.
Well, it's true because as I was thinking about this topic more, we really do attach ages to certain things, such as like driving or drinking, or when people start to get older, when they should stop driving or when they should stop living alone. But I think there are so many reasons why we really should possibly rethink this model and actually start taking a look at whether people are competent to do the things regardless of age. What do you think about that?
Well, I agree. I don't think you can just come up with a number. I think you have to test for it to say, is someone capable of driving a car without killing someone? Laughed when I was thinking about it because my father's friend Jimmy, I remember watching him go around turns and he'd be rubbing both wheels on the curb to make it around the turn. I'm saying, no, he shouldn't.
Yeah. Well, it's true because in the example I used was about, like, I would much rather be operated on, for instance, by a surgeon who may be 70 years old but's highly competent than an incompetent one at age 20 at age 30 or whatever. So I think especially when it comes to professions and where professions are actually having an impact on other people, we really need to make sure that there's some sort of certification or validation of people's competency, and it's not necessarily something that's age focused. So just some food for thought, and I think there's definitely some opportunities for change there. Because as I mentioned in the post, I know a lot of 16-year-olds who, based on what they're saying, we should be watching out for people who are aging, probably shouldn't also be driving based on some of that criteria. So. To go a little bit more somber, Mike, there was an article in Scientific American on how COVID-19 is actually potentially damaging the brains and potentially increasing the opportunity for dementia as a result for older people. Now, what they were saying is it's actually twofold. One, the physical aspects. So, for instance, if people are having trouble breathing, then the oxygen is just not able to make it to the brain. And then the other side is all this social isolation can actually end up causing mental health issues, which then can also cause loneliness and contribute to brain issues. So I don't know. What do you think? What are your thoughts on this?
Well, COVID has its own problems directly attached to it, and I don't even think we know exactly how much damage that will cause, but I'm sure there is damage. But I'm more concerned about stress levels and isolation and frustration levels and depression. I think that's a direct result of the pandemic, and you have to be careful because it's very easy to slip in that downward spiral. You get depressed, you get negative, the whole world's falling apart, and there's nothing you can do about it. And that can cause some long-term lasting damage. You could, blood pressure goes up, you're going to have trouble sleeping at night, you're not eating properly, or you're eating comfort foods that will kill you quick enough, right? And so, there's a lot of problems attached to it, and it's so important to try to, drag yourself out of that downward spiral.
Yeah, and I think it's such a really difficult balancing act between protecting people. So, for instance, we know that the majority of the people that are severely impacted by COVID-19 are older, but at the same time, making sure that there's a balance of life as well. So you can't just put these people in rooms. And I think there was another article I saw where this is becoming a big issue of isolation and the loneliness and trying to, quote, protect people, but at the same time, what kind of life is that, when you can't have any social interaction or any type of physical, accessibility, and not necessarily close, but even just people coming in to visit if you, for instance, if you're in a care home. So I really don't know. I think we really have to figure this out. We have to figure out what balances well for us as society as a whole, and make sure that we don't leave anybody behind just because it might be easier to do that way. So it's a complicated topic. All I do is hope and pray that we'll be coming with a vaccine soon, and maybe that might help
So
ease
do I,
things a
because,
bit. Yeah.
the thing is, you can overprotect people, right? You have older people in your families that you're very concerned about. So you almost suffocate them. And they're almost dying from boredom, just sitting there, doing nothing, just watching TV. And it's pretty sad. You have to find ways to get them going again, get them active again, get them outside again, but keep them protected, right?
Yeah, it's a fine line, fine line. Okay, finally, you've been writing all the way along through this pandemic about some of the things you learned, and I decided to add my voice to it and ask the question: is the COVID-19 possibly a dress rehearsal for retirement? For example, are you getting bored with this extra time? Are you staying connected with people beyond who you actually work with? What's your relationships like at home? How would you, on a scale of 1 to 10, how would you say you're making out if you were actually assessing this? I know you are retired, so it's you're somewhat probably already set in this mode, but how would you say you fared through this?
Because it was disruptive to me as well. I remember sitting there on the couch one day, I think we were 3 or 4 days in, and I kind of realized that, hey, I've been through this again. It felt like when I was pushed out of my 36-year banking career.
Mm.
Sitting on the couch, I have nothing to do, I'm kind of down. And then I had the ringing in my ears from the high blood pressure because I was frustrated. And you're scared to catching COVID and dying. You can't even go outside. When you go to the store, there's no food there, and you can't buy toilet paper. You can't get hand sanitizer, and you have all this information coming at you. And it was equivalent to retirement shock that I went through when I got booted out of my job. It felt the same way, and I did the same bad things. Like I started getting into the comfort food. I started eating the salamis and all the cheeses and all that to make myself feel good. And thank God the LCBO was still open, so I could go buy some wine and stuff and to make myself feel better. But like I said, it's a downward spiral, and you have to get out of it. I did, but it's not easy. And that's exactly how sudden retirement shock feels like. So, and I went, hey, I know what to do to get out of this thing because I got out of it before. And I started putting good habits back in place. Started following those, started working out, started eating properly, started cutting down the amount of TV I watched, especially news coverage of the virus and things like that. And it started to come back together. So I went down to a 3 out of the gate, and now I'm probably between a 6 and 7, but I'm working at it and I'm going in the right direction, so I'm happy. But it wasn't easy.
It wasn't actually. I found sort of the same thing. Like, even though, I already work from home, so that wasn't a big shock. But like you said, it was more not the isolation, because I was still in contact with people, but it was a different type of contact. Similar to you, the food was probably not I was finding comfort in the food, which was not a good thing to be doing. The exercise then started to tail off. I got that quarantine 15 thing happening, where the people are putting on 15 pounds as a result of this, and so I quickly had to shake myself out of it as well, in that sort of rut. But I think it is a good indicator of how you may actually behave if, for instance, like you said, you were thrown into retirement and not necessarily prepared for it, and you don't actually have things lined up. So I guess maybe a good thing out of this may be that people learn something about themselves, and specifically for retirement and those getting ready for retirement, take a look at how you're doing and what you might change if you were retired, if this was sort of more of a full-time situation for you. So just some food for thought anyway. So
Well, sorry, really, I think because of this experiment, let's call it a retirement experiment, a lot of people are going to change their minds, and they might defer retirement for a period of time because they discovered you need purpose. You need structure. Thankfully, I was working on my new book, so it gave me something to do. But if I didn't have that purpose, it would have been brutal.
Yeah.
So, I think it opened a lot of people's eyes to it.
Yeah, it opened up their eyes to not only maybe the work that they're doing, but also what they could possibly be doing is what I'm hoping as
That's
well.
right.
You know,
That's right.
and maybe if you had that extra time, maybe gave some thought to some of the things that you might like to do in retirement, so that you actually can start building your plan sooner rather than later, so that you don't go into it without, having some idea of what may interest you or how you're going to.
It was the perfect time to do that type of planning, because there was nothing else you could do.
Too true, too true. Okay, well, that ends our session for today. Thanks again, Mike. Always a pleasure talking to you.
Thanks, Susan. Talk to you soon.
Okay, and to everybody out there, hope you found this information interesting and it helps you live your best moving Encore. Bye for now.